It was a calm Saturday afternoon in Maple Ridge, a quiet little town tucked away in the heart of Tennessee. The kind of place where everyone knew each other by name, where the loudest noise you'd hear was the distant hum of motorcycles passing through the highway or the church bell ringing at noon. Inside Maggie's Diner, a cozy roadside cafe known for its homemade pies, a handful of regulars sat chatting over coffee. The air smelled of fresh pancakes and bacon, and old country music played softly from a dusty jukebox. Behind the counter, Grandma Maggie, a gentle woman in her late 60s with silver hair and a kind smile, poured refills with the same warmth she'd shown for decades, but peace can shatter in an instant. The door burst open with a loud slam. Everyone turned as a small boy no older than 7 stumbled in, tears streaming down his cheeks. His voice trembled, but his words were clear. "He hit my grandma!" The room fell silent. Forks stopped midair. Maggie froze, the coffee pot shaking in her hand. She hurried over, kneeling beside the boy. "Sweetheart, who did this? What happened?" The child hiccuped between sobs. "The man next door. He was yelling at her for parking by his driveway. Then he hit her and pushed her down." A wave of outrage spread through the diner. Tom, a retired mechanic sitting at the corner booth, clenched his fists. Jenny, the waitress, covered her mouth in shock. Maggie's heart raced. That grandma wasn't her, but she knew exactly who it was. The boy was talking about Miss Edna, her longtime friend and neighbor, a sweet elderly woman who sold homemade jam at the farmer's market every weekend. Without hesitation, Maggie reached for her phone to call the sheriff. But before she could dial, the sound of engines echoed in the distance, a low, rumbling growl that grew louder by the second. Heads turned toward the diner windows as a line of Harley-Davidsons rolled down Main Street, about a dozen of them, chrome shining under the afternoon sun. The boy sniffled, looking up. Those are the bikers Grandma always gives cookies to. Maggie's eyes widened. She knew them. The Iron Saints Motorcycle Club. They were a rough-looking bunch, but every year they donated food to the town's veterans and helped locals in need. Miss Edna had always been kind to them, often handing out fresh cookies and hot cocoa whenever they passed by her house. Now, by some twist of fate, they were riding right into town at the exact moment she needed them most. The diner door creaked open as the bikers stopped out front, removing their helmets. Their leader, a tall man with a gray beard and a leather vest reading Iron Saints, Nashville Chapter, stepped inside. His sharp eyes scanned the room. "Who said someone hurt Edna?" he asked quietly. The little boy pointed toward the street, his voice shaking. "He lives right over there." The biker's jaw tightened. He nodded once. "Stay here, kid." And as the engines roared back to life, everyone inside the diner knew something was about to go down that Maple Ridge would never forget. The roar of the motorcycles echoed down the quiet streets of Maple Ridge, bouncing off the old brick buildings like thunder. Curtains lifted. Doors cracked open. Everyone in town peeked outside to see what was happening. 12 leather-clad bikers, led by a gray-bearded man named Hawk, rolled through Main Street with one purpose: to make things right. At the front of the line rode Hawk, his sharp eyes locked on a small white house at the end of the block, the house the little boy had pointed to. The same house where Miss Edna, the town's beloved grandmother figure, had been struck. When the bikes stopped, their engines rumbled to silence. The ground itself seemed to hold its breath. The front door of the house opened slightly, and a man stepped out, the same one who had hit Edna. He was in his 40s, wearing a stained undershirt and an expression that mixed fear with arrogance. He looked at the line of motorcycles and scoffed, trying to sound tough. "What's this supposed to be? A circus?" he sneered. Hawk dismounted slowly, his boots crunching against the gravel. He wasn't angry, and not yet. His calm, commanding presence said enough. "Afternoon," he said in a low tone. "We heard you put your hands on Miss Edna." The man shrugged. "Old woman should have stayed out of my way. She parked too close to my driveway." That was the wrong thing to say. The other bikers stepped closer. forming a silent wall of leather and steel behind Hawk. One of them, a big guy with tattoos on his arms, clenched his fists. Another crossed his arms, glaring, but Hawk simply tilted his head. "See, son," he said quietly, "around here, folks respect their elders. Miss Edna's family to this town, and to us. You don't lay hands on family." The man's smirk faltered. "What are you gonna do about it?" he muttered. Hawk didn't answer with words. He just motioned toward the house next door. Miss Edna was standing on her porch now, holding her cane, a bruise forming on her cheek but her spirit unbroken. Beside her stood the little boy, watching wide-eyed. When the man saw them, he suddenly looked smaller, weaker. Hawk turned to the boy. "You okay, little man?" The child nodded shyly. "Yes, sir." Hawk looked back at the man. "Then we'll leave it at this. You're gonna walk over there, apologize to that woman, and you're gonna fix whatever you broke, her fence, her mailbox, or her pride, because if I hear you raised your voice to her again—" He paused, taking a slow step forward until they were face to face. "And then this whole town will know exactly what kind of man you are. Understand?" The man swallowed hard and nodded. Yeah, I'll fix it." The tension broke. Hawk stepped back, gave Miss Edna a respectful nod, and turned toward his bike. The others followed. As the engines roared to life again, the air filled with the deep, powerful sound of unity. Not violence, but justice. Miss Edna raised a trembling hand, smiling softly. "Thank you, boys," she said. Hawk smiled beneath his beard. "You don't ever need to thank us, ma'am. You've been feeding angels all these years. It was about time we looked after one." As the bikers rode off into the setting sun, the little boy hugged his grandma tightly. And in that small Tennessee town, everyone learned a timeless truth. Real strength doesn't come from fists or fear, but from standing up for what's right.